Hi. How's it going, ladies and germs? Ladies and gerbils. My name's Dustin Cormier, and you're watching another episode of How to Rock Spirit. Today, we just finished a roundabout description of the Gemini and Virgo sun coming through the year of the goat. You can check out that video. It's labeled like Year of the Goat, sheep, coming through the Earth Pancha-Tattva, which is ruled Mercury. So essentially, Gemini and Virgo are both ruled by Mercury. So that's the concentric symbolism of that video. It's focusing on how Mercury relates to the year of the goat. Now, in this episode, we are going to actually talk about Gemini, specifically about how Gemini reflects on the personality of the year of the goat. We've already talked a little bit about the nature of the goat. Well, we've really talked a lot about Gemini, but we just filled up lots of space about the goat as well. Now, what I would like to do, I'm going to be reading from basically 4 different texts today. There's 3 main texts, but I like to start off with this little gumball of the zodiac diagram group. I like it because this little book gives us a little taste of the nature of the animal sign. And then from there, we're going to take another little taste of Gemini mixed with the goat. And then we're going to start to really have different authors' interpretations of how Gemini relates to and reflects on the year of the goat. As usual, this is a live stream podcast. Anybody watching, like my good friend Goosey, who's always here supporting me. Oh yeah, true, eh? We were just talking about different bands and stuff that we enjoy. Anybody who's watching live can feel free to throw in a comment, make any statement, make any stupid thing you like, and we shall try as much as we can to cater all the comments to the conversation at hand. Now I'm just going to do the Leo thing and spruce myself up here. Make my hair all wild and fancy. I got to start to... My bangs are getting a little bit ridiculous right about now. So, without further ado, for all those watching, let's talk about Gemini born in the year of the goat. First of all, what does the goat bring in? Most of us in the Western astrology world have a pretty good sense of what Gemini is all about. Let's talk a bit about the goat. The year of the goat, we talked about how it's on the summer side of things. It's a fire sign in a way. It's more technically, its deepest expression, first of all, is in the wood triad. The wood triad is catalysts. The goat loves to feel supported. The goat loves to serve in the same way that Gemini and Virgo love to serve. Gemini doesn't serve like the same way that Virgo does. Gemini is a little bit more... He acts from his own self-center in order that he can contribute well to whatever group he's in. The goat, though, adds more of this emotionality in a certain way. The goat, being in the wood triad, is very concerned with being on everybody's good side. They will be sharp and critical with the Gemini coming through. Gemini is just honest. Sorry, bud, but this is what I'm thinking. But the goat in this person will be very careful not to step on anyone's toes, not to cause undue tension or conflict. Sometimes they accidentally still will. They're very sensitive to emotions. Sometimes they'll hear when a person's emotional, like a person's being taken advantage of. And the Gemini will say, hey, that's not fair. And they'll mention it. But they might cause even more tension by mentioning certain things. So it's important for the Gemini to be objective about their criticisms and to not be too spontaneously about like someone's emotions, because they're very sensitive to emotions. The goat follows its own way up the mountain. These people are very artistic, have a great artistic wit and critical sense. They're good at criticizing writing and art. The Gemini and the goat in this combination. We talked about in our video how there are lots of places of what we call confluence. Confluence is when the themes of the Western chart relate to the themes of the Chinese sign. In this particular combination, especially because of the wood triangle, this communicator, the goat's a communicator, a catalyst. There's lots of points where the communication of the goat line up directly with the communication of the Gemini, for better or worse. It's nice if you have a strongly placed Mercury. The closer your Mercury is to Virgo, the better. If you've got Mercury, particularly in Cancer, keep this in mind. If you're a Gemini and if you've got Mercury in Cancer, it's very possible for the goat in you to be sensitive to the emotions of others and to have your mind fogged by your empathy of emotions. The goat is an earth animal. It's yin earth at its basic essence. And so it feels in its stomach. The stomach is the earth center sign in Chinese astrology. The goat feels from its stomach when something is not being truthful or honestly expressed in the emotions of the group. If someone's feeling like repressed in some way, feeling small, the goat will feel it. And if this person has an ill-placed Mercury, like I said, if this person has Mercury in Cancer in particular, because there's lots of Gemini suns, since the sun, Mercury never goes too far from the sun. It's always either one or two signs at the most to the left or right of the sun. Now, if the sun is in Gemini and Mercury is in Cancer, it clouds the objectivity of this person, where everyone loves Gemini because they're so spontaneous and honest. The sun, the king, the sun is the center of the chart. The king identifies with Gemini when the sun, the king, is in Gemini. So the sun, this person's ego is concentrated on their capacity to communicate their needs, and also to communicate important needs that are conducive to the growth of the whole group. The Gemini is sensitive to what would be good for everybody in the group. But if their Mercury is in Cancer, they might feel, oh, I don't know if I'm worthy. I don't know if I deserve to say this. Or they'll think with their emotions, which is not the right place for Mercury. Mercury is not in a friendly sign in Cancer. It's even worse in Pisces. But obviously, if you're a Gemini, your Mercury is not going to be in Pisces. So, just keep this in mind. Mercury is at its best when it's not thinking too emotionally. When it's just being honest. I'm just being honest. This is better for everybody if I can express my honesty. And if the sun is well placed, if there's positive aspects to the sun, then the sun will feel good about expressing its perception of what's going on in the group, in the immediate reality. My point here, though, was that for coming through the goat, who's very emotionally sensitive, if Mercury is in Cancer, this person, we talked about the problem, for example, if everyone leans on the goat because it's in the wood triangle. I know I'm going a lot of places here, but bear with me. The wood triangle people includes the goat, and they lean on the woody feeling of support for others, almost to the point where it's silly. They're emotionally dependent in a certain way. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Certain plants grow stronger together when they interweave with each other, as long as they don't choke each other out and lose their own root, right? But the goat, it leans on other people's emotional support and on this emotional support that it gives to other people. That's something the goat does. Now, since that makes this emotional reality an important thing for the goat. Now, if they, for example, if they're living together with a bunch of people and Johnny wants to go out with Janie, or Johnny and Janie break up, we just talked about this example. And Janie comes to the Gemini Goat and says, don't tell anybody, but I think Johnny cheated on me and I feel awful about it. And so I've broken up with Johnny and I feel just so awful, just so awful. The Gemini Goat will say, well, that's fucked. The only thing that's going to make you feel better is if this gets rectified right now, because Johnny is obviously a problem to the emotional wellness of our group. And, this is the goat thinking emotionally. So they might do something bad, like tell everybody, all right, everybody, slam their fist. Well, they won't really do that, but they'll just say, everybody, I feel so bad because I just heard, they can be bad gossips, these people. I just heard that Johnny cheated on Janie. And that is just so awful. I'm going to go and tell the landlord that Johnny sucks. And maybe they'll even meddle and they'll try to be like, the ends justify the means. And so they'll tell the landlord that Johnny's been selling drugs through the house. The landlord comes and says, all right, everybody, I heard Johnny's been selling drugs. That's no good. We're going to kick him out. And everyone looks in the group and says, Johnny's not selling drugs. And then it's like, where did this come from? Who told you this? And the landowner says, well, Gemini Goat told me this. And the Gemini Goat's like, okay, guys, I know I lied there, but listen, the ends justify. This is, remember, we're talking about if this is a Gemini Goat with Mercury in Cancer who thinks emotionally. They think that their emotional ends justify their fucking convoluted means. Excuse me for swearing. I'm excited right now. And everyone says, so you lied about Johnny selling drugs? And then the Gemini Goat with Mercury and Cancer, thinking emotionally, will say, yes, the reason is, everybody will understand this, because I heard that Johnny cheated on Janie, and we don't need that kind of negative energy in our group. And then everyone will say, are you sure that Johnny cheated on Janie? Like, have you thought that through? Have you researched or asked anybody else? Because the goat trying to support Janie through the wood triangle, thinking spontaneously through the fire. Goat's like a fire type too. And they feel in the earth the emotional cramping of Janie, because goat is essentially an earth sign. They feel the emotional crampedness of Janie, but Janie didn't mean to get the Gemini Goat to start thinking emotionally and just lose it and do all these things. They didn't ask them to meddle in this way. But the goat, the Gemini sun, identifying as the king does with the Gemini feeling goodness of everybody, says, well, I'm going to take it upon myself to meddle and to do this, because the Mercury was thinking emotionally in Cancer. So this is my point, especially if you've got Mercury in Cancer. Be very wary of thinking emotionally and losing it emotionally, because the goat leans on its emotional support systems. And when Gemini is at its best expression is when it's emotionally sensitive. The goat here is bound to be emotionally sensitive and sympathetic. And it wants to be a shoulder for people to cry on and to support people emotionally. And that's the goat. Now the Gemini is going to come through the goat in this way and talk honestly and critically and objectively about these emotional realities. But sometimes their emotions can because they're leaning on those emotional connections for their own sense of being built up and supported. Make sure that you don't burn bridges for one emotional connection to burn the connection of another one unless you've diligently thought it through. Think twice before you act with this combination, because the Gemini mixed with the fiery spontaneity of the goat is just gonna it's just gonna say whatever it's on its mind. They can be a gossip. They can proliferate rather what could be negative things. Although at the best expression, they proliferate positive things, and their spontaneity can help bring something that is positive to make it even more positive and to bring it out right in everybody's consciousness. Just amplifies things in this way, you know? The Gemini at its best knows that everyone appreciates their spontaneous, witty criticism, and they'll do it best when they're objective about it. When they'll tell everybody something deeply insightful about one person's nature, and the goat will try to make it positive. You know, Janie is just so nice. Do you guys ever notice that the way Janie wakes up in the morning and she does this thing that brings us all just like a betterment in our lives, you know? Or, well, I mean, that's just blah, but like with a good, well-placed Mercury, this person will have a deep insight into the positive things that everybody brings to the table, and they can make everybody feel good that way. As long as they don't meddle and they don't think too emotionally. You as a Gemini bring your honest, spontaneous, critical wit and objectivity to any situation, and that's what people expect from you. And you, as the goat, are making subliminal, supportive ties to other people because that's what keeps you alive. And now the goat is their own, they climb the mountain in their own way. It's the fire in the goat. It can just climb and waddle along patiently in its own time. And so that's part of what makes these people great artists, is that they'll help everybody and they'll lean on, part of their thing is just to constantly be helping everybody. But they're satisfied to like have an okay job, whatever that job is. Might not even be a great job. Goats eat paper. They eat money. And for the first like 30 years, they might live in a sort of like starving artist type of squalor. It's not until they start to be realistic and responsible about managing their energy through Mercury. And it's not until basically after about 30, the goat everyone starts to know that the goat has helped them out. Whatever the goat has supported other people with, the goat gets it back after like 30 years old, when people just know, you did that favor for me like 1,000 times, so I'll help you out this time. Charming, amiable, and sympathetic. Goats are genuinely nice people. They hate to criticize and always look for the best in people, including themselves. A goat will prefer to forget grievances rather than brood over them, and will bottle up resentments to keep the peace. Thankfully, the Gemini here goes a long way to just like, since the sun identifies with honest, spontaneous wit, they won't bottle their shit up as much. They'll get it out in a witty way that doesn't really burn anybody's ass, that doesn't burn any bridges, but they'll say it. They'll still say what's causing them. This is causing me tension in this moment, and it's this. And they probably won't offend anybody, but they will still get an important point across. And people love the Gemini goat for this. It's like they're the one person who can say anything honestly to you without making you hate them. It's a great gift of the Gemini goat. Goat people live in the present, which they enjoy to the best of their abilities. Thanks to their sensitive natures, goats are one of the more artistic and creative of all the Chinese horoscope signs. People may think that goats are weak creatures who are easy to take advantage of. In reality, these people will fight violently if something important to them is threatened. Fortunately, goats assign value according to very personal criteria. So what they would defend to the last is not often something that others covet, thankfully. It's more personal stuff, usually for them. Personal values. Hey, don't say that to my friend, you know? This is interesting. So this is a certain balance that the goat needs to find. Normally, people are advised to look to themselves to balance the strengths and weaknesses of their character. For example, the goat would be advised to try and take more care of the practical side of life, such as paying the bills instead of eating paper. That's what the Chinese say about the goat, is that they eat paper, they eat money. And the goat, anybody would say when you're missing something, like if you eat paper, don't eat paper. Be more financially responsible and fiscally responsible. Don't rely on others to support you as you pursue your own interests. Chinese tradition holds that goats are mostly unable to change this aspect of their nature. Therefore, they will need to find a patron to take care of the administration of their life and allow the Gemini goat the freedom to make the most of their creative talents. This role can be filled by, for example, a devoted husband or a wife, a manager, or even a loyal accountant, which would be a good thing for this person to do. Although the Gemini in this person won't let their finances go too much to shit, although unless they have like Mercury in Cancer, because then they're going to be thinking emotionally about these sympathetic ties that they're trying to connect with people. Oh God, fucking Janie, like I just need like $100 more for my rent, but Janie is just like struggling to eat right now, and she's asking me if I can pay for her meal. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Oh, I hope this works out for me. That's like the Mercury in Cancer, thinking emotionally about and ruining the Gemini's fiscal responsibility. Yeah. I mean, Mercury is not debilitated in Cancer. I say that Mercury has a tough time in Cancer because Mercury is not friends with the moon. Usually, for example, if you have the moon and Mercury conjunct in a chart, the moon is going to take it over, and it'll make you think not clearly. It'll make you emotional. You can be an emotional spender. And it loses the fiscal objectivity, the monetary, pragmatism that Gemini is so loved and well known for. Goats eat everything, don't they? I'm a goat too. I'm in the year of the goat, and I get this. I mean, luckily, my mother really tried to fucking get me to have at least a stable enough job that I don't fucking spend all her money. But the part of the reason why I can do these videos is because for a large part of my life, my mom paved the way for me financially to be able to get all these creative attributes that I have. I'm 27 years old now, turning 28, going through my Saturn return. It's only now that I'm starting to be able to have a regular job that can slowly pay back some of the debt that I have to my mother. That's a thing. But that's why I'm here, being able to do what I do, taking advantage of my creative talents through someone else's financial patronage. Sometimes I'm so fucking honest that I fucking burn myself. It's part of the goat thing. Sorry. The fire of the goat just is like, oh, this is my reality. I might as well not hide it. I mean, I'm not fucking starving or nothing like that. My mom, I'm deeply connected to my mother, and she knows that I am working towards paying her back. She doesn't even care about it, thankfully. She's okay financially. But I intend to pay her back, and she knows that, and it's all coming along. I got no reason to lie about it, just because I felt like if I had to lie about it, you wouldn't see the confident, blah, honest, fun, spontaneous goat that you're talking to right now. It's part of our thing. I'm the year of the goat, like I said. So, if you're looking for part of the character of the goat, what's up? You got it right here. Okay. So, we just talked a little bit about the nature of the goat. Now let's talk about what Gemini... we've been talking about both, but we're going to start reading from some scripture, from some books, getting a more concise description of what exactly the Gemini brings to the goat and what exactly the goat brings to the Gemini. This first reading comes from the Handbook of Chinese Horoscopes by Theodore Lau and Laura Lau. So you can see I've read it enough that I've lost the front page for it. This is the Gemini sheep. Sheep and goat being interchangeable. This is a versatile and creative combination. A versatile and creative combination emerges when this sun sign meets with the moon sign, the lunar sign of the goat or the sheep. We call it a moon sign because the Chinese signs really go by the months. The new moon is a new month sign, and 12 new moons is a new year sign. That's why the new year in Chinese, it changes all the time. And then the day is also, it's just its own thing. Every day is another day. But we typically call the Chinese signs in Bazi, we call them moon signs. So when the Gemini sun meets with the sheep lunar sign, we get a versatile creative combination. The sheep's good taste and refined manners, coupled with Gemini's wit and humor, should strike a congenial balance. With Mercury's influence, the sheep personality loses some of his sentimentality and acquires some of Gemini's love of action and practical outlook on life, which is great for the goat who eats paper, right? This is an adventurous and many-sided personality who loves excitement, new ideas, and challenging experiences. It would be hard to keep up with or even just keep track of this person when they're out chasing a dozen different things. This book gives a good little gumball description of the signs. And as we go along, this book gives an even bigger gumball, and then this one gives the biggest gumball. It's a good description of the essential nature of this sheep and Gemini. I would say that if we were to take anything out of that, we would say that the sheep brings some refinement and artistic good taste. The sheep increases Gemini's aesthetic sense. It also increases their sympathy and their ability to relate with others. But the Gemini, like the goat, can be too much of that empathetic sort of like even stopping themselves from giving a criticism that the goat might see useful, you know? The Gemini doesn't make them so sappy. Goats can be sappy and just like, oh, geez, I'm so emotional and I'm so fucking sweet, aren't I? The Gemini keeps it kind of spinning, just, you know, like not too much of that. Like, yeah, I'm sweet or whatever, but also like, hey, can I squeeze your nipples and do you want to buy me a drink? You know, they're just more funny and witty and socially like keep the ball rolling, right? And there's an excitement towards action that the Gemini brings to the goat. The goat can just be this type of person that just worries about everyone in the world and is trying to keep everybody centered. You know, a goat often is holding neurological tension for various people without even knowing it. They're kind of empaths in that sort of way. People will come to the goat because I've always come to you for my emotional problems because I need the shoulder to cry on. And the goat's like, well, I got to go to work tomorrow, but I'll lose some sleep. And they'll talk with the person for 5 hours until the person has completely gotten it off their chest. And the goat says, I love doing this for you. Please come back anytime without thinking and I will be here for you. Meanwhile, the goat's like, oh, thank God, it's fucking 4 a.m. now and I got to get up for work at 9 a.m. And then someone knocks at the door at 4:30 a.m, right when they're about to go to sleep. And they say, Goat, I just got to talk to you about something. And Goat says, come on in. It's just the way the goat is. They identify with that helping people. But sometimes, like, you know, like they got their own emotional shit and other people's shit that they just store because the other person doesn't want to store it. And the goat's just like, oh, that's just really awful, you know? Sometimes people come to the goat because they don't really want help. They just want a shoulder to cry on. But, you know, that's emotional energy pouring into the goat that they can just get like sogged down. And so the goat can become pessimistic and just start to think like, gosh, all this negative energy coming to all these people. And to me, it's just, oh, it's getting heavy. The Gemini takes it all, laughs in the moment with the person. Oh, come on, you'll get over this, buddy. You know, come on, we've gotten through worse. Remember the last time when that other thing happened? Just fuck nothing, bro. We got this. They let it go in that moment, and then they let it go in the next moment, and then they let it go in the next moment, and they constantly are dealing with these emotional things but not really holding it in. Gemini keeps the goat lighter, and that's something that the goat can really use, because the goat's supposed to be living by its fiery heart center. The goat can get its stomach so full of other people's neurological tension that it just becomes like sick. And the Gemini has just got a way of like stirring that pot so that it doesn't get too uptight. Although they can still get uptight, you know. It depends on so many things. Especially if their Mercury is in like Virgo, where Mercury, like we're talking about a Gemini. So, well, it probably wouldn't go to Virgo. Let's say if their Mercury is in Gemini, or if their Mercury even is in Taurus, these people will be more sensitive to how much time they put into people's emotional woes when they come to them. They'll be practical about it. But if Mercury's in Cancer, they'll fucking get bogged down. And this will be an even more critically, their spontaneous criticism will be like dry and like heavy and just like, wow, that was dark. You know, these people can come through with those tones if they don't do what Gemini is supposed to do, which is to communicate their needs in the moment, which will make everybody feel better about everything. I need you to stop talking about this so I can go to work tomorrow, right? Now, our next reading regarding this combination comes from Cosmic Astrology by Mantak Chia and William U. Wei. This is the Gemini month combined with the Ram year. This book calls it the Ram. Of course, you know, the goat, ram, and sheep are all synonymous with the same Chinese animal figure. Just get a little drink here. Getting dry. Need to drink some water so I don't feel so bad. Jokes are only going to get worse, folks. Gemini Ram. This combination can be absolutely needy when it comes to others. Ramming, no pun intended, head first into this neediness is the Gemini in a reversal of characters, because the Gemini tends to be a shooting star. Dialectical combinations make for some interesting characters. Dialectical meaning people with like two different sides. The twins is already a twin, right? So there's a deep dialectic happening here. And the Gemini Ram is certainly a dialectical character. They can be busy as bees, but most certainly not all the time. They get tired. One trait that tends to rise to the surface for this combination is akin to cynicism and results in frequent sharp and critical comments to others. So this is what I was talking about when so much negative energy for these people are coming in. If they can't turn off their nervous system, then they'll be agitated. It'll gather in their stomach, their yin earth organ system, and they'll become cynical. And they can bottle up too much of everybody's negativity. But it should be clear that they do need people to make these very comments to. Even though these people can be just the stubborn old wart, the stubborn old bump on the log type of like, geez, everything is just so shitty. They need others to express this criticism with and to. People come to them for it, but they also need others to just like, isn't it all just so crappy sometimes? They just need to get it out like that. These individuals are not exactly psychic, but they are very insightful, probably because of their skills at communication. This is also reflected in their aptitude in the arts. Finally, in the communications department, the Gemini Ram is a shameless gossip. Keep that in mind. However, what they need more than anything else is security. This comes from the Goat and the Gemini. Gemini is very fiscally secure, and if they feel like their bank account is going boom, 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 the Gemini is like, oh, I feel that, gotta fix that. The Gemini is also a communicator, so the result here can be a razor-sharp comments sprinkled with intelligence and humor. Their bite and their humor can just as easily be focused on themselves. It's just this spontaneous, natural, honest humor. And if they have a cute way of being like, ah, well, geez, like old me just can't stop doing that. You know, old Dusty just can't stop doing that thing. And I'm still gonna do it, but you know, I'm not a Gemini, but you know, you see the point. Their bite and their humor, this Gemini spontaneity, this goat sense of psychology, can be aimed at themselves just as readily as it can to anybody else. In romance, this combination loves and needs the company of others. They also love and need a certain amount of flexibility in the loyalty realm, especially when they are younger. This combination is not known for its fidelity, but this is in fact quite the contrary. Living up to the image of many Gemini, these people enjoy playing, and they enjoy it a lot. This does not mean they want to live alone. They do not. Lots of weird data. Sometimes these writers just smash a whole bunch of points into one. It's hard to keep the thread sometimes. I understand that Gemini likes to be light, it likes to be mutable. You know, these people could be polyamorous. The Goat is like part of the fire. Snake, horse, and goat are the fire season, the summer season, the celestial summer season. And fire is honest and spontaneous about the blood flowing through things, and the flow of blood makes everyone feel better. And so they're aware when sometimes these people just think like, why don't we all just like mix up with each other to keep it fresh, you know? But, and that could just be the nature of this person. But of course, whenever we read any reading like this, we have to know that there's so much more to a person than just the sun sign, and there's so much more to a person in Chinese astrology than just the year sign of the Goat. There's also the month sign, there's the day sign, there's the day stem, which is the center of the Chinese chart. With regard to this infidelity thing, if the person has a well-placed Venus, like say if this is a Gemini Goat with Venus in Pisces, they're much more, that's an exalted expression of Venus. So maybe, they could still be polyamorous, but they'll have fidelity. They'll understand the value of being responsible for the connections they make to other people in a heartfelt way. And any Gemini Goat could have the capacity to have fidelity and to be committed to a monogamous relationship, if that's what they prefer. It's just that the Gemini likes to keep things spinning, to keep things fresh. We can see how freshness can be involved in looking for new partners. There's that potential is there if they want to go down that path. But if you have a strongly placed Venus, you probably won't. You'll probably be responsible about relationships, right? So always consider everything in context. And even if you are a person who's like polyamorous, think about it, deal with it emotionally, realistically, you know? Because our emotions are just as important to us as anything. Especially we talked about in our last video, how Mercury is fed by Venus. If you look at the 5, I'll show you what I'm talking about just for the sake of it while we're here on this video. We can see in the Pancha-Tattva scheme that Venus, this is like the five-pointed star of the Vedic conception of how the planets interact with each other. The five-pointed star here shows that Venus is what Mercury stands on. Venus feeds Mercury. Water feeds like the Earth Pancha-Tattva in that way. So what that really means is that if you, as a Gemini goat, decide to be polyamorous, be careful about infidelity. Be careful about breaking emotional realities with other people just because you thought, like, you promised one person that you were going to have fidelity, and then you go to another. It's like, let's keep it fresh. Why not, right? And, that other person, they don't need to know what's going on. And if that gets found out about, you lose your strength as the goat to be someone that others can lean on, honestly. Especially with the Gemini, is all about, they like to be known for their honesty and spontaneity. And people aren't going to like you, and you will not be able to capitalize on these gifts that you have if everyone thinks that you're a slut in the bad sense. I don't slut shame, but I mean like someone who's a heartbreaker. That's not a good place for a goat to be, because the goat lives for the hearts of others. It gives them power. It gives us power. I'm a goat too. Now, in relationships, because of Gemini Ram's tendency toward utilizing their freedom, these people need someone who's more like a rock. That means staying away from Virgo or Scorpio buffaloes. Buffalo is the ox. Anyone in the year of the ox doesn't tend to work well with the goat. Typically. I've gone out with some ox girls that I fucking love to pieces. But that's just the year sign, right? Having someone opposite your day sign is a bit more tough to deal with. So this also means staying away, because since you like to be someone who's like a rock, this Gemini person, you also might want to stay away from Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces dogs, and also Pisces tigers. Some good romantic picks for the Gemini goat are Aries rabbit, or Libra horse, or Libra boar. Aquarius rabbits and boars and Leo horses also capture this combination's attention. Family life. This combination is the general and tactician, and the person to whom everyone looks for guidance. You can see this in family life for sure. The Gemini Ram makes a good parent, and, with someone who is open-minded and somewhat tolerant, a good spouse. The Gemini Ram is a natural parent and loving family member. When they do go on journeys, both literal and metaphorical, they enjoy time at home with those they love. The home is the headquarters of their heart, and that headquarters is the location of all the significant activities in their life. In addition, it is comfortable, and there is a place for everything, and everything is in its place, including the children. It's a good thing. Gemini knows where everything's supposed to be. The goat is a family person, just no matter what. So this Gemini, the goat is glued, like the goat is like made for family making, and they'll deeply identify with their family emotionally and in everything in themselves. And the Gemini will be making sure mentally, logically, that all the things that need to be done, kids got to get their new little booties, and now the little booties are getting too small for the kids, and let's get another one. They'll put money into all these little things. All the little details. The Mercury rulership. Now, livelihood for these people. The Gemini Ram makes an excellent follower, but not particularly a good leader. My nose is stuffy today. These people prefer not to be in management positions. This combination is a good worker, and even though negative and complaining at times, is responsible. It's like, ugh, it's just, I gotta, boss tells me I gotta do this thing, all these stupid little things I gotta do, but they'll do it. The reason they're complaining is because they're ventilating the fact that they're responsible to what they gotta do. These individuals have an aptitude for the artistic and perhaps the performing arts, where it is possible that they can be successful. Yeah, I could see them being definite performers and artists, especially sympathizing with the neurological joy of people. The wood is like, tries to find sympathizing joy, what supports us all. And so the goat in this person feels what feels good in themselves, and also they observe it very keenly when something feels good to other people. They just, over time, they're looking for what feels good. It's a wood thing, and being in the wood triangle. The Gemini is also super observant. So this person eventually gets a deep sense of what makes people feel good. And so they can be trendsetters, and they can lock onto this and be great, like comedians, for example. What makes everybody laugh? This thing. Now I'm going to capitalize on it, right? Oh, lovely. My uncle is a Libra born. I'm Capricorn snake, and I love my uncle. See, that's how you got to do it, Goosey. No matter what the signs are, if you have a love for somebody, and if love can overtake and transcend the neurological boundaries to our astral energies, then those boundaries won't really even be there, will they? Love transcends all astrology if you let it, because it's there to do so. It's only when we get frustrated about the way other people are that we let astrological boundaries get in the way of the essential unity that we all have. And don't worry about that Mercury in Cancer there, Money Green. Just be aware of it. I talk about all these things not to yeah, you got it, Goosey. I talk about these possible negative factors of, for example, having Mercury in Cancer, to express possible pratfalls, possible things that could happen. But, don't pigeonhole yourself into thinking that you can't be divided from your emotional thinking. Emotional thinking is important. You just got to learn how to be objective about when you feel you're acting on emotional reaction in any situation. And if you can, then there's not generally going to be a problem, Everyone's got every planet somewhere, and every planet somewhere has positive attributes. Mercury in Cancer has positive attributes. You just got to learn how those attributes contribute to all the other attributes in your chart in harmony with each other, right? In a way which expresses them all in a positive way. If you guys are noticing my Day of the Horse antics. So spontaneous. Okay. Our next reading, for those who are still watching, we are looking at the New Astrology, a unique synthesis of the Chinese and Western systems from a lady named Suzanne White. This lady's actually a sweetheart. She lives in France. She's got a very interesting story. She connected with me through a YouTuber who was watching my channel. The YouTuber told her that I was doing these, and she was very flattered, and she was very nice about it. I might even try to collaborate with her. I'm actually in contact with this fucking lady. It's fucking crazy. It's the world, I've been doing this lady's readings of her things for like a few months now. It's just amazing that she actually reached out and contacted me, or that the universe made the connection. She's a sweetheart. She's got a cool book out about how she was born in America, and America sucked for her, and so she decided to go live in Paris, where it's all about love and beauty and just the Paris vibe. And she was much better for it. seems like a cool whole story. I haven't read it, but she's a sweet lady, and I recommend her work, obviously, right? I'm kind of promoting her by talking about this book, and for good reason. Although I always do say, whenever we read these books, always keep in mind that there's no script. This is just an author. She's just a lady who had observations about a Gemini. She had observations about the goat in her personal life, and she blended them together in her own thinking. There's no scripture here. There's no ancient text that's 3,000 years old that says Gemini Goat is going to be like this. So that's why she is doing important work, just as we all should be, in this new burgeoning field of cross-cultural blending of these different cultural wisdoms about the energy field. So when we read about Gemini Goat here, remember that this is just one lady's interpretation of it. That's why I'm giving you 4 different artists' rendition of the sign combination, because we all don't really know how it's supposed to go, but there are poetic archetypes that we can cater to with regards to these signs. For what it's worth, no one's talked about them as a combination, but the Chinese astrology has been talking about the year of the goat for 3,000 years. Vedic and Babylonian Western astrology has been talking about Gemini for 3,000 years. So in their individual pockets, that's well established that there's a scriptural edifice of objectifiable data. This is a science, an observational science, and Gemini is well established. Goat is well established. But the two of them together, we have to consider, whenever we do a reading of them, that this is always going to be from an artist's interpretation of the combination of the symbols. Just for a little bit of objectivity's sake. Doesn't mean we can't take anything from them, of course. Just take everything you read with a grain of salt if it doesn't come from scripture, in my opinion. We got Gemini Goat. The keyword for Gemini is I think. The keyword for goat is I depend. I think I depend on this person, but I also think I depend on this person. Which one is more important to me? Which one should I think about going more towards and investing my supportive, sympathetic energy to? I think it should be this person. It's an interesting thing, you know? Gemini Goat's got to make sure they don't bite the hand that feeds them when they are supporting the one person. The other patron has been helping them out all this time. This person says, hey, that patron is fucking you over in this way. The Gemini Goat says, I think I depend on you, but I also think that this is messing me up. And you're an idiot for doing that. If the Gemini Goat, like, bites the hand that feeds them, they can get fucked. Then again, maybe you should be careful also about who's feeding you, you know? It's up to you, Gemini. Think it through. The Gemini Goat is a firefly who flits about in others' lives out of sheer caprice. Gemini Goat is a tired pessimist who denigrates and disagrees with the world at large. Or perhaps he or she is the eternal disappointed critic whose longing for perfection, in other words, in others, of course, leads them to drop acerbic comments as though they were rose petals. The Gemini Goat is a bit of all of these things. You won't find many goats running around loose. Goats need other people. All goats require both company and guiding forces. Gemini is the mercurial sign. Quick, volatile, fickle. So think about putting these two together. Dependency and fickleness. Like being a smiling, chubby baby who's looking around for a change from his dull parents and leaps into the arms of almost anybody who passes his stroller in the street. I'm bored with mom and dad. You guys look like you'd be fun and different. How about it, guys? That's creepily a trippy vision of Gemini Goat. Gemini goats are decidedly bright and usually extremely, bitingly, observantly funny. They have a capacity for laughing at themselves. Somehow, Gemini goats are so disconnected from the concrete that they must be very tuned in to the instinctual. They can see a hunch coming at 30 miles. They get these hunches. The goat, born in Gemini, is gifted in things artistic. They will be good with their hands and truly know how to handle a wide variety of materials. Gemini goats are able to be content and carry on with artisan projects or craft hobbies which they truly love, only when they feel safe. Tie up a Gemini goat on a crowded, trafficy boulevard sidewalk, and you'll be able to fetch him there 3 hours later to remove him directly to the mental institution. This person functions best in security. Right, so you tie them up on a crowded, trafficy boulevard sidewalk, and they'll have to go to the mental institution. That's what that meant. Goat Geminis like to gossip. They are curious about everyone they meet. Does he have a girlfriend? Is she really a dress designer? Did he have a car accident and kill his dog, or was it his wife? Goat Geminis want to know your story and that of everybody you know or hear of or talk to them about. They just want to hear it. What's that all about? They don't often give out information on themselves unless asked, however. They're not exactly secretive. They are guarded. They know what they do with the information they glean about others' private lives, so for obvious reasons, they are not quick to share their own. Gossip about everybody in town except themselves. One very nice thing about these people is their ability to use language. They're extremely delicately and tersely eloquent. They must have kissed the Blarney Stone, as my Irish mother would say. Gemini goats are good at foreign languages, too. They imitate well, and as they have highly sensitive hearing, they pick up nuances easily. Devotion is a word I like to think of as applicable to the Gemini goat. As an adult, this person may seem to you to be dragging a traveling circus of family, family's family, friends of family's family, and friends around with him all the time. These goats not only like to be around other people, they must have company. They also like to watch people enjoy themselves. They are uncomfortable with sorrow. It's as though sadness were a personal insult to them, the Gemini goat. They don't want anything to do with it. As goats go, the Gemini variety is rather less pessimistic than other goats. They do have a kind of jaundiced view of other people and how they live their lives. Gemini goat likes to put down other people of whom they don't approve or whom they find silly or ridiculous. They don't really care what other people do. They're not judgmental, but they like to poke around in their dirty laundry and guffaw if they find something untoward. Haha! I knew this person was doing this. Haha! Like, I'm a goof sometimes, sorry. I'm a goat too, so I don't know, I guess I like to laugh at myself. Now, Gemini goat in love. I seem to write only about unfaithfulness in love. This is the author talking about herself. She tends to only write about unfaithfulness in love. I confess it is beginning to weigh on my spirit, but never mind. Gemini goats are about as faithful as Jezebel and care about this flaw in their characters even less. The Gemini Goat is a person who wants to live one-on-one with another. You will rarely, if ever, find a confirmed bachelor Gemini Goat. But somewhere, somehow, someone else invariably comes along. The plumber, the baker, that handsome young man with the pretty teeth, or that lovely girl who works at the supermarket. Well, they can't help it. It's part of this person's charm. If you love a Gemini Goat, remember to make it appear that you are holding things together. Act as if you are the strong one. The devotion you receive in return will well outweigh the pain of petty jealousies elicited by the above-mentioned peccadillos. Gemini Goats make great partners for people who want to go out into the world and stomp about getting successful. Gemini Goat will never stand in the way of an ambitious partner. The only advice I would give here to remember is that to love a Gemini Goat is to be willing to stand watch over their tendency to indolence. As he or she cares a lot about what their loved one thinks of them and they desire their mate's respect. So your firm hand will never be ignored and will even be secretly appreciated. It's a job, but Gemini Goats give lots of fantasy and fun in return. Of course, again, we have to consider that everything in the chart is going to describe whether a Gemini Goat can hold down this monogamy. They might, it's in the nature, we can see it's in the nature of the Gemini Goat to be just so in the heart fire. Like Gemini is spontaneous, and the heart fire, the fire element in the goat. I mean, again, fire's not the goat's main element, earth is, but fire is a big part of the goat's vibe, and it's heart-centered. It's whatever gets the blood pumping. Whatever makes my heart beat is what I'm going to go towards, because that makes it easier on my journey. If my heart's bumping because I'm attracted to something, that means that I'm working less hard to push the fucking cart up the mountain. That's always going to be there for them. And you might even have to deal with, like, so if they have a strong Saturn, if the Gemini Goat has a strong Saturn close to the 7th house where Saturn is its strongest, if it's in its own sign in Capricorn or Aquarius, or especially if it's exalted in Libra, this person will consider it important for them to dedicate themselves to worthy and valuable relationships rather than just flitty ones. And also having a good Venus placement. The closer Venus is to Pisces, its exaltation point, the closer Venus is to the 4th house, the more this person will understand how important it is to have a meaningful and valuable relationship in life, and that they'll cater to it, and there'll be no problem for them. But you'll still have to deal with them if they really deeply love you, and they've got a strong Saturn and a strong Venus, and you're watching a movie with them and you're holding hands and they really do love you, you're gonna have to deal with the fact that a pretty girl comes on screen and they're like, man, did you see that girl's tits? Oh, because it's the way they are. It's the spontaneity of the Gemini, the sensuality of Gemini, the sparkly, even the edgy, mentally edgy, fun, curious, like, what if I say this with my partner? Sorry, but this is just what I feel like saying. That's a cute thing. Don't judge them for that. Because, the girls' tits are beautiful and they feel like saying it and whatever, That's what I think anyway, as a goat. I'm sympathizing for myself, I guess. But the Gemini here is just going to be like, blah, there it is. And I have Gemini people in my life who I love that for. Damn, they're not wrong about that girl's tits. So you're always going to have to deal with that. And if you really love them, you'll give them a bit of rope in it. But look to their Saturn and Venus, But even if if the Gemini Goat has like Saturn and Aries, where Saturn's debilitated, watch out for that kind of person. And if you have that, be aware that relationships are important. Your emotions are important, and you'll get more value out of a relationship if you stick to it. But if you're a polyamorous person, that's a whole different thing. I'm going to be talking about that kind of thing on my channel. But fidelity is important. Again, like we already said, you can sleep with all the people in the world. Just don't go breaking hearts, because the goat leans on their emotional connections. And if everyone in town knows that you're a shitty, emotionally thoughtless person, again, you'll miss out on the gifts that are available to the heartfelt spontaneity of the goat. Now, home and family for the Gemini goat. The home is the location of Gemini goat's heart. He or she may not necessarily spend all their time there, but the fact of a home is of primary importance in this subject's existence. They like to come home, go home, be home, receive in their home, be sick at home, give birth at home, and die at home. And they would rather go home than go fishing. Gemini goat likes the warmth and coziness of a family home where each person has their own room and everybody gets together to eat around the same table for a whole lifetime. Gemini goat wants to be the center of others' lives. Parenting comes naturally to this subject. He or she will not only give love and sacrifice for their offspring, but they will remain attentive to their kids in both negative and positive ways until they die. They have uncanny patience for a spoonful of Uncle Louie now and a spoonful for Daddy. I'm not sure what it means here. I guess they're giving certain bits to different people of their investment energy, I guess. They have uncanny patience for a spoonful for Uncle Louie now and a spoonful for Daddy. I guess it's like they're feeding their kids at the table. I don't know. I don't know what they mean by that. Whatever. Sometimes these books are confusing. The Gemini goat child will be first and foremost a love bug. He or she will nestle and snuggle and hop into lap after lap as long as the lap owner is cuddly and warm. This kid will also be a first-rate communicator and will probably be gifted in the lively arts. Of course, he or she needs lots of parental loving control and supervision for everything from lessons to choice of companions. The Gemini goat is impressionable and easily influenced, and they could fall in with the wrong crowd. Something to keep in mind in your own life if you're a Gemini goat and that might have happened in your childhood. Think about how you could reflect on that. And also if you have a Gemini child that you've given birth to, keep that in mind, certainly. Now, as far as profession goes, again, as this subject is Gemini and also a talented and artistic goat, this person can aim at any career connected with entertainment. There are few fields involving meeting the public in which this person cannot succeed. The Gemini goat may complain about their boss a lot away from work, but they make a terrific, interesting, and devoted employee. Their natural talent for dependency will steer them clear of most positions of authority. Gemini goat not only doesn't make a good boss, they don't really want to be. As a star performer, this person will be quite content. They don't mind being prodded, and they're not terribly dependent on applause. Basically, this person's quite easygoing about work, and it always shows in the gracious way they go about their chores. They like to have work to do, especially if it's for other people and it's serving them. They don't need to make a lot of money off of it. They just need to know that they're protected in their interests. Security. Security is the name of the game for these people. And they get it by fastening themselves to people who are secure. You know, most times you're going to find people who are so materially secure because they've spent their whole life being tough and fucking obliterating and smashing the material world, calculating data, making a business, making a job, doing whatever they have to do to be tough and make their business happen. The goat will come along and say, "Hey, do you want a coffee, boss? How you feeling? Do you want a back rub?" And if they find a boss who's like worked their ass off and they've never had someone support them that way, they'll be, "Yeah, sure, fuck, I can use a fucking foot rub while you're at it." As long as yeah. Anyway, the point is that the Gemini goat, will be a good supporter for someone who is a boss, who does the tough stuff that you need to do to be a boss. The Gemini will happily go about doing chores for this person, or whatever little chores, give me a guide, tell me what to do, essentially, and these people will be happy to do whatever their directive is, as long as they have the security that they'll be there tomorrow to take new and different exciting orders all the time, Some suitable careers for the Gemini goat are TV personality, singer, painter, diplomat, actor or actress, and critic especially. If this person has like Mercury and Virgo, well, they couldn't because the sun is in Gemini. But if the sun is like at the lower part of Gemini, let's say 5 degrees, and Mercury is also in Gemini where it's its own sign, but at like, maybe like 15 degrees, so it's not combust the sun, this person will be an incredible, witty critic who's objective and who sees how one person's way is universally relatable but also fucked up, and like they'll put a spin on anything. They can make an ocean out of a dewdrop with their writing capacity. Famous Gemini goats include Arthur Conan Doyle, John Wayne, Herve Alfond, Pauline Kael, and Brooke Shields. Yeah, that was our reading of The New Astrology by Suzanne White regarding the Gemini goat, Gemini ram, Gemini sheep. I hope you guys enjoyed that. As usual, I deeply enjoy doing this stuff with you guys. And there's always more to come here on How to Rock Spirit. I've been doing these alongside my sextrology series, which I have a lot of fun doing. I'm a Scorpio and I like talking about sexy stuff like the sexual nature of the sun signs coming through their male and female gender and everything in between. I'm also going to be talking with some girlfriends of mine soon about like gender politics. There's lots of places I'm interested in going with this channel, but it's all going to keep coming along. Ox is the hour, Earth Ox day. Wow. You got lots of metal triangle energy, Goosey. What is happening here? Sorry. Ox hour, ox day. Ox is in the metal triangle, and so is the snake. Fire Tiger month is cool. You and me would make great friends, Goosey, because the boar and the tiger are great friends, and I'm in the month of the boar, and you're in the month of the tiger, and those are great friends. The ox in you is the peach blossom for ox is the horse, and that usually means that the ox really likes the horse. And the metal snake is also part of that metal triangle. Okay, cool. Well, that's cool, Goosey. Cool. Just still cool that you're researching, girl. That's what you got to do. You want to ask. So do you mean, Goosey, that you wanted to ask if I think those are your signs? I couldn't really tell. Thing about this astrology stuff is that, like, I wouldn't want to tell you, like, yeah, you're totally an ox when I wasn't 100% sure. That's something that you're going to have to, you find out the time that you're born, really get as sure as you can that that's the correct time. Ask your parents, ask your mom if she remembers the time that you were born. Ask your dad if he remembers the time that you were born. Try to connect whatever's on your doctor's birth certificate with your parents' experience. Try to make that connection. And then you look up where you can find your hour sign, like I said, on that Mingpan Python Anywhere site. And that's how you find your year sign, your hour sign, and all those things. So keep researching, Goosey. See if you see yourself in it. Learn about the sign of the ox and see if that seems like what your hour sign is. It's a tough thing to deal with. Yeah, that's a great idea, Goosey. That way you've got a little bit more evidence. Beautiful, girl. You rock that. And Nicole Jones, I wonder what you were mentioning here. You're a Gemini. Okay, so you're a Gemini. I wonder if you're a goat too, Nicole. I'd love to know that. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of How to Rock Spirit, Gemini Goat. Stay tuned if you're still watching live. Our next video, we're going to talk about how the Virgo relates with the goat and how the goat relates with the Virgo, right in about probably 5 minutes, because I'm going to go eat something so I don't die, because I've been at this since 4 o'clock. I love you guys. I love you folks. I'm Mr. fucking sentimental goat guy, and you guys are supporting me, and I love to support you. Feel free to be a part of my channel. This is the goat. Hi, you're talking to the goat live. I love having you guys on my channel. Make a comment, send me an email, do whatever you feel like, and I would love to be a part of your material experience here on planet Earth. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Spirit, and check me out in about 5 minutes. We're going to learn about Virgo Sun coming through the year of the goat. Thanks for watching.